Oh, hi. Hello. How are you? Um, I had a minute before hi, hello. How are you? I had a minute before my next meeting. And so I thought I would come on here and talk to y'all about a lot of you have been asking me to do a live about the Roe versus Wade stuff. So I'm here. Um, for many of you who may have just started following me or who haven't been following me for a really long time, I started my entire career as a professional adult woman as the lobbyist for Planned Parenthood of Utah. And my dissertation that I wrote to get my PhD was about women in rural California accessing contraception and abortion, navigating religious stigma to access contraception and abortion. And so, one of the things that I really learned throughout that process was that that I really learned throughout that process was that this is a complicated conversation. And one of the other things I learned, because I had an Americans United for Life playbook, legislative playbook that I was given by an elected official, is that I learned that this was coming. So I started my job in 2006. I've been warning everybody, this is coming. We've been warning everybody, this is coming. I've had many conversations with my colleagues about this. And what got released in Politico yesterday is not a shock. And to me, anyway. And I think a lot of other people are shocked. But I don't think those of us that have been working in reproductive justice for a really long time are actually at all surprised. One of the things that I really want people to know is that yes, there's things you can do, and I'll talk about those in a minute, but I also think it's really important to understand the Roe versus Wade decision. The Roe versus Wade decision is not about abortion. Abortion was the topic, but the decision is about privacy. And when we fall into the right wing, conservative right wing trap of, hi, Susan, when we fall into the conservative right wing trap of just talking about abortion, we miss the enormity and the breadth and the depth of the Roe versus Wade decision. And I think it is really important for us to understand that privacy is at stake. The Lawrence v. Texas sodomy decision that made it illegal to arrest gay people for having sex, which, by the way, was just very recent. The Lawrence v. Texas decision was predicated, hi Tejan, on Roe versus Wade. The marriage decision was the gay marriage and interracial marriage was based on the privacy issues that have been discussed around contraception and abortion. One of the things that used to frustrate me exceptionally was when I was really involved in gay politics and gay activism, and my friends who were in the LGBT community would say, this doesn't affect me, I don't care about Roe versus Wade. When the bottom line at the end of the day is that Roe versus Wade affects everybody, regardless of whether or not you're trying to access abortion, because it's about privacy. And if we don't start talking about the privacy issues, we don't talk about the breadth and depth and the gravity of what this means for people. And so I really want to remind you that yes, women's bodies are at stake. And yes, the ability to get an abortion is at stake. And contraception is also at stake. It is really important for us to remember that contraception is really, really on the line here. It's also really important for us to remember that men are a piece of this puzzle. And while I truly and deeply appreciate that women will be the ones who feel the immediate effects of this issue, men are also involved in this issue. Most people who get an abortion, over half, are married. If the wording that was released in Politico is the wording that goes through, then what's going to happen is that women who miscarry, women who have ectopic pregnancies, those women will be at risk for being prosecuted. Just let that sink in for just a second. Miscarriage happens all the time. All the time. Most women don't even know they're pregnant and they have a miscarriage. This is crazy. This is crazy making. It's disturbing. The other thing that I'm really disturbed by is this idea. I keep seeing this all over on all the things. This idea that, where are all the men? Where's all the men? Where's the men? Where's the men? I'm going to say an unhappy truth from my own perspective. And that is that we as feminists do not give men credit for how misogyny and patriarchy plays on them. And I think it's really important for us to be willing to acknowledge that we do not create space for men to grieve what just happened. And I'm going to use my own personal example of this as a way of illustrating this for you. So my son is 11. And when he was growing up, I really focused on empowering the girls. Like really focused on empowering the girls. And one day, I'll never forget this. He was like 3 or 4. And the words, "you need to man up," came out of my mouth. He was like a toddler. He didn't even know how to talk all the way. And I caught myself saying that, and I was like, whoa, 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 wait, hold the stinking phone. Hold the phone. Why am I talking to my son differently than I'm talking to my daughter? If we're going to raise feminist boys to become feminist men, and if we're going to stop asking this damn question of, where's all the men? Where's all the men? Where's all the men? That means we have to start raising feminist boys. And that means we have to stop having separate expectations for how we raise our girls and how we raise our boys. It means that we raise them to be aware. And this is my illustration, my profound illustration, is that last night, the first person to cry when I said they're going to overturn Roe versus Wade was my son. He wept. And then he said, he's 11. And then he said, Mom, how can they charge women with murder when a fetus isn't a sentient being and it cannot communicate with sentience? My son used the word sentience, which, by the way, is a really big word for an 11-year-old. And this is why I'm coming here to you today. I'm imploring you to think about how this affects more than just women. Later on in the conversation when we were talking about birth control and the idea that potentially my children and my children's children won't have access to birth control. My son said, Mom, do you think this means I'll have to get a vasectomy because those are reversible? See, I talk to my kids about these things. Because those are reversible, and maybe if my partner can't access birth control, will that become my responsibility? He's 11. I won the parenting Olympics yesterday because my kids were thinking about this in a completely different way. And so here's what I want to encourage you all to think about as we are walking through this process. This isn't over, by the way. This isn't the formal opinion. Can we please not just talk about women when we talk about Roe versus Wade? Can we please not just talk about abortion when we talk about Roe versus Wade? Can we please open up to the knowledge that as I was talking to my daughter, my 14-year-old daughter, and she was sobbing, and she was like, I'm not going to be able to access abortion if I need it. And I said, yes, you are. You're wealthy. You're white. You have access to resources. And she was like, whoa, Mom, I hadn't even thought about that. I hadn't even thought about it. You're welcome, Joyce. You're welcome. Oh, RAP. Yes, great organization. Yes, Carrie, it can affect you and your husband's decisions about not having more children, for sure. Listen, my daughter was sobbing, and I said to my daughter, you have that option. What I'm more worried about is your birth control. Where are we going to get that from if it becomes non-existent? I'll fly Gwen to wherever she needs to go to get an abortion if that's what she wants. But I'm a little more worried about preventing those abortions from happening in the first place and making them available when they do happen. I'm really worried about all the women who are going to end up with ectopic pregnancies and having to talk to their partners, their husbands, about their very wanted children. Ectopic pregnancies kill women. This conversation is about so much more than what this polarized, anti-choice, pro-choice rhetoric leads us to believe. And that is the thing that I think is so important as we're moving forward. This is not a formal decision. It was the draft decision. Dear God, please let them change that draft. Because I will tell you, so much more is at stake than we believe. Privacy in medical decisions is at stake. It's not just about abortion. Privacy, HIPAA, privacy laws, LGBT people, interracial marriage, contraception. All of these things are on the table. Hey, Mel, what's up? All of these things are on the table. We have to pay attention to the enormity and the breadth of this and not get narrow focused into this polarizing us versus them mentality. This is about the collective. And that's what I was trying to explain to my daughter last night. What is happening right now is about the collective. What is happening right now doesn't just affect women. This is not just about the women who we have been raised to believe use abortion. This is about women who have medical issues, whose health and life is at stake. This is about making sure that women who have had miscarriages have access to the procedures that are required after a miscarriage, called a dilation and extraction and a D&C and a D&E. These are medical procedures that women need to save their lives that will no longer be in existence. And let me just say this. If this truly matters to you, if this is something that you are now horrified about. I made a joke when I was writing the blog post and the email about this. I knew this was coming. Listen to the witch. Listen to the clairvoyant when she says, this is coming. Do not tell me I'm being overdramatic or theatrical. Do not tell me that I do not know what I'm fucking talking about. Do not tell me that I don't know what is taking place, because I do. And I cannot tell you the literal hundreds to thousands of people where I have said, we legitimately are at risk for losing everything, who have told me that I was being too much. All of the DMs I'm getting, all of the messages that I'm getting. Listen when people tell you what is at stake, because we know. We know. Also, if we are going to dismantle the patriarchy and disrupt racism and white supremacy, it's going to be ugly. This isn't going to be a pretty, precious time. This shit is getting real. This is going to be ugly. It is not going to be beautiful. This is not going to be beautiful. This is going to be rough. This is going to be complicated. This is going to be hard. And that's okay. That is okay. It is okay if we are going to disrupt the patriarchy, white supremacy, and racism for it to not be pleasant. It is okay. It is okay. If we're truly going to say we do not want to live in a world where white supremacy and all of these other things exist, then we have to allow for the crumbling. We have to disrupt what's happening. And we have to start recognizing how misogyny and patriarchy works on men just as equally as it does on women. They aren't allowed to express their feelings. My husband was so uncomfortable when Sean was crying last night. He did not know what to do with himself. It was so uncomfortable for him. It is hard and complicated and difficult for people to express emotion around these things. And that's why our rights keep getting taken away from us. And I used to really push and push and push for people to pay attention, and they just wouldn't. And sometimes I truly believe that everything has to get taken away in order for us to see it. And that's just the shits it sure is. So there's a couple of things I've been thinking about to help people do something and take action, because I know that's what y'all want. I highly recommend you support Emily's List. They are an organization that gets pro-choice women elected to public office. They have been around forever. They're amazing. And you can donate any amount of money to them at emilyslist.org. And I will put the link in the comments for this live. Emily's List is absolutely where I'm getting ready to send my money today, so I highly recommend it. I also really recommend that you think about getting in touch with your local abortion funds, because they're going to need support, and they're going to need money, and they're going to need volunteers. And if things truly are going to go into play the way we think they are, in 27 states around this country, what's called trigger bans are going to come into play, including my home state of Utah. I fought that trigger ban tooth and nail. And trigger bans are going to come into play. And so what's going to happen is that there's a whole bunch of laws at all of the states that that they are bans, out and out bans against abortion. And those bans will go into effect the minute the decision becomes finalized through the Supreme Court. So people are going to need money to travel. They're going to need money to access. And we are going to have to come together and support them, just like the priests did in the 50s and the 60s. Because it was the priests who were taking women to get abortions. It's a beautiful thing. The other thing I really want, I didn't know I was going to get all weepy. I really want to compel us to think about the way we have been acting so binary in this country. This is not all or nothing, black or white. This is not Christians versus pagans. This is not us versus them. This is not pro-choice versus pro-life. That's not what this is. There are pro-life people who get abortions. There are Christians who get abortions. There are Muslims who get abortions. There's Jews that get abortions. There are Mormons that get abortions. Everybody gets abortions. This is not uncommon. And this also isn't just about abortion. This is about our capacity and our ability to connect with other people about the fact that our right to privacy, to make private personal decisions, not just about abortion, but about marriage, about contraception, about sex, are being taken away from us by a conservative group of people. Support the organizations like WRAP, which is a women's health, WRRAP.org, organizations that help people. And please consider talking about men and boys in this conversation. Please consider how this is going to affect their lives. Because the reality of abortion is that it is married couples typically who are making these decisions. It is not what we've been led to believe. It is the woman who called me on the phone
at my office my last year at Planned Parenthood, who was the most beautiful woman, who said, I am a very conservative LDS woman, and all I've ever wanted is a family. And I have a medical condition so that every time I get pregnant, right around the 4th or 5th month, my body tries to kill me and I have to get an abortion. I have been pregnant 8 times and I have 1 living child. And I am afraid about what the legislature is doing and how it will affect my family. And that woman has stayed with me for the last 12 years. Because all she ever wanted was all that I ever wanted, to have a baby. And neither of us could do it. So I just really want to implore you to think about this broadly and give it your all, people. Don't get stuck in the us versus them mentality. Go out and show them what you're made of, humanely.